Did you know that the song Parts of Your World was almost cut from this movie, all because of a young girl who dropped her popcorn during an early screening of the film? And did you know that this film started a new era of Disney films called the Renaissance era? This was a boom period with hit after hit after hit. Come and find out the secret ingredients that made this film a huge success in 100 Facts about the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid is the 28th Disney animated feature film. It was released in 1989 to huge success. This was a much needed hit for the animation films. After Walt Disney's death, the films were not as critically successful and would be assigned the name the Bronze Era. Disney as an entire company was not doing successfully and almost had a corporate takeover. Disney needed a new change in direction. Michael Eisner was assigned as the CEO and Jeffrey Katzenberg assigned as the head of the films division. After the Black Cauldron, Eisner and Katzenberg set up the Gong Show. This was a chance for anyone to pitch ideas to be turned into animated features. Ron Clements discovered the story The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen in a bookshop, and he thought it would make a good feature film.
In January of 1985, we had the first of what was called a Gong Show. This was a concept that Michael Eisner brought over to Disney from Paramount.
It was an opportunity for all of us to get together and to sort of open the doors up and hear everything and anything.
Everyone was supposed to come up with 5 new ideas for animated features. And I went out and looked for ideas, and I went into a bookstore and I read The Little Mermaid and got very excited about it and wondered why it had never been done before, and then realized when I got to the end that it was a very sad story where the mermaid dies at the end and loses her prince. But I came up with an idea of a way to make it end in a happier way, wrote up a 2-page treatment, and then when we reconvened 2 weeks later, I pitched The Little Mermaid.
Many other films were approved through the Gong Show, like Rescuers Down Under and Beauty and the Beast. But Little Mermaid did not make the cut the first time around, and this was because there was already a movie in development with mermaids that was a sequel to a Tom Hanks movie.
It actually got gonged.
It was gonged because they were in development at that point on a sequel to Splash, and they thought it would be too close, so they just said, nah, we're doing the sequel to Splash, forget it.
But the next day, I got a call from Jeffrey Katzenberg, who said he had read the treatment and actually thought it had potential and it was put in development.
It was outstanding, and it was better in the writing than it was in the telling. The question was, what do you do with it next? In the world in which I come from, go hire a great screenwriter.
Jeffrey Katzenberg now wanted someone to write the script. Ron Clements and John Musker believed they could do a good job themselves. They wanted to be given a chance to write the film as well as direct it. Scripts were new to the Disney company. Stories had always been written using storyboards dating back to Walt Disney. When Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg started looking at Disney storyboards, they couldn't work out what they were looking at. They were used to reading scripts from their time at Paramount.
John Musker and I, we had worked together quite a bit. We were both writers as well as storymen, so it seemed natural to ask him if he would want to collaborate on a script.
Ron and John really fought passionately for an opportunity to write it, and you know, as animators and as animation directors, it never occurred to me that they were screenwriters.
The idea of doing a fairy tale appealed to me because it was certainly part of the Disney tradition, but there hadn't been one in 30 years, so it was doing something in a tradition and yet trying to find a new approach to it that really hadn't been done before.
They wrote a stunning screenplay. I mean, just to this day, I remember it as being one of the best of anything I've ever had.
Peter Schneider was also a major influence in the studio at that time because he fostered this whole idea of communication.
Peter Schneider was hired to supervise the animation department and reported directly to Katzenberg. Schneider had a background in Broadway theatre, and he brought that approach to the animated films. This is how Howard Ashman became involved in working for Disney. It is no understatement that this changed Disney history forever.
Jeffrey's friend David Geffen called him about a songwriting team, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken, that he'd worked with on the off-Broadway hit Little Shop of Horrors. Peter had worked with them on the same show as company manager, so he brought them in to work on The Little Mermaid.
Howard was just coming off a terrible disappointment when his musical Smile crashed and burned on Broadway. He came to Los Angeles to start over again.
Howard Ashman became involved in working with Disney. Ashman had grew up watching the Disney films and wanted to make a film that fit with the Disney legacy.
I grew up on Pinocchio and Peter Pan, and the idea of doing one of those is like there's all these library books on the shelf. There's Snow White, and there's Sleeping Beauty, and there's Cinderella, there's Peter Pan, there's Pinocchio. And to try to make something that fits comfortably on the shelf with those, I mean, that's like what a difficult thing to do, but what a great thing to try to do.
When Ashman joined Disney, he was most interested in working with the animation department. He knew that Disney was at its best when it was a musical. The two mediums fit so well together, and he wanted to bring all of his experience from writing Broadway musicals.
When I was approached with an opportunity to work for Disney, period, I left it. I said, what about animation? What about working in that department? That was what I really wanted to do here. Much, much more than anything really in live action. Because I'm really a musical theater person, and I do see a very, very strong connection between these two media.
Howard would also become involved with the story. This is because in great musicals, the songs move the story forward and help tell the story. He wanted to change one of the characters in the film. This was because he had an idea for a song that he wanted to include in the film.
We had this character in the original treatment in the script. It was a crab character that was kind of, would be sort of look after the mermaid and try to keep her out of trouble and watch over. And he was kind of a crusty old crotchety character who worked for the king and was like the conductor in the undersea world. Howard said, why not make him Jamaican? And our first reaction was, Jamaican? I mean, it was like a total twist on what we were thinking.
He rounds up all of these fish and all of this stuff to convince Ariel not to try to become human, and they more or less put on a show for her by playing all these instruments themselves. Okay, so here it starts. He starts establishing the rhythm. Clams pick it up, and oysters.
Howard Ashman knew that the songs needed to progress the story. The worst thing in a musical is for a song to be in it that has no meaning. You need to learn something new about the characters through the song. You need to find out who they are and what they want. One of the key songs in a musical is something referred to as the I Want song. Howard wanted to bring this type of song to the Disney movies, and this would become iconic for the brand and is now a main feature of most Disney musicals from the Renaissance era onwards.
In almost every musical ever written, there's a place, it's usually about the third song of the evening. Sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's the fourth, but it's quite early. And the leading lady usually sits down on something. Sometimes it's a tree stump in Brigadoon, sometimes it's under the pillars of Covent Garden in My Fair Lady, or it's a trash can in Little Shop of Horrors. But the leading lady sits down on something and sings about what she wants in life. And the audience falls in love with her and then roots for her to get it for the rest of the night.
There were a new brand of animators who became important to the success of the Renaissance era. The Little Mermaid supervising animators included Glen Keane and Mark Henn on Ariel, Andreas Deja on King Triton, and Ruben Aquino on Ursula. Originally, Glen Keane had been asked to work on Ursula. This was because he had established a reputation for drawing large, powerful figures such as the bear in The Fox and the Hound and Professor Rattigan in The Great Mouse Detective. However, Keane connected to Ariel and felt that he had to work on her animation.
I thought, I have to do that. And I went and told those guys, I really want to do Ariel. And they said, well, I don't know. I mean, this is supposed to be a pretty girl. Can you do that? I said, look, I have to do Ariel. I mean, I can feel it in my heart.
He oversaw the Part of Your World musical number, and it has some of the finest animation of all time. I still go back to study it because of its excellent storytelling. Glen has said in interviews that when he was animating Ariel, he was no longer Glen. He was thinking about how desperate Ariel was to go to the land. So it is crazy to think that Jeffrey Katzenberg almost cut this song from the film.
This story is true and deeply humiliating, but we'll tell it.
There was a preview screening for children, and Katzenberg was not happy with it.
We were previewing for school kids, and so the kids during that screening, it was a lot of the movie was in black and white, and certainly Part of Your World was, I think a lot of it was in story sketches.
And the movie comes up on its feet, and we get to Part of Your World, and it's just not connecting. The audience is restless, and I came out of that and just said, don't think this is working.
So Jeffrey was bound and determined to cut Part of Your World. It was just like, guys, face reality, you know, it's not working, it's not there, we got to do something. And we pleaded our case. He wouldn't listen to us. Howard pleaded his case.
Howard Ashman said, over my dead body, you know, I'll strangle you.
Finally, Glen Keane went to Jeffrey and said, Jeffrey, you cannot cut this, you're crazy. This is the heart of the movie. It's her whole dream, and to cut that will really gut our emotional involvement with our heroine.
In the screening, there was a little girl who dropped her popcorn during Part of Your World, and she decided to start picking up the popcorn and trying to put it back in the box, and she was more interested in the popcorn than in the song. Katzenberg took that as a sign. The song needed to be cut.
To me, it was the last thing I thought possible.
I was, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? You know.
I was, what? So that's it? It's like all that work is gone? I called Jeffrey. Jeffrey, just because of some hyperactive kid sitting in front of you, you can't take it. Glenn, look, I understand. You of all people are going to feel this the most, but it's not just because of that little kid there. It's boring. It's like.
So fortunately, Glenn, through his petitioning Jeffrey Katzenberg, got enough of a reprieve from the governor, a stay of execution, such that we could preview it with the song, and we at least got to animate the song.
The underwater setting required the most special effects since Fantasia in 1940. Effects animation supervisor Mark Dindal estimated that over 1 million bubbles were drawn for this film. The Little Mermaid was the last Disney film to feature traditional hand-painted cell animation. Disney's next film, The Rescuers Down Under, would use a method called caps, an invention by a new company called Pixar. The film was a huge success. The previous film released by Disney, Oliver & Company, broke records to become the highest grossing film in its initial run. The Little Mermaid earned 64% more than Oliver & Company and became the new holder of that title. The Little Mermaid earned 3 Academy Award nominations, making it the first Disney film to earn a nomination since The Rescuers. It won 2 Academy Awards for Howard Ashman and Alan Menken for Best Original Score and Best Original Song. This success sparked a renaissance period for Disney, a boom period where they released hit after hit after hit, like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas and The Lion King. If you are new to watching these videos, this is a playlist where I'm doing 100 facts about every Disney film, going from the beginning with Snow White all the way up to today. So subscribe to see your favourite Disney movies. I release these 100 facts videos every Sunday, so be sure to join me next week. The next film in the series is 100 facts about the Rescuers Down Under. I'll see you there.